People who hired a personal investigator. What did you uncover? It's an old joke, but I really wanna hire two pies to follow each other. I know that, realistically, it won't work. They'll pick up what's happening quickly, but still. This is going to be buried, but my grandmother hired a pie to follow my grandfather around because she thought he was having an affair after almost 10 years of marriage. He was mysteriously disappearing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The pie told her, "I don't know what you're worried about. He's going to church." He was taking classes to convert to Catholicism for her as a surprise for their 10th anniversary. Not me, but my mom was an attorney who worked in workers' compensation insurance. Her colleagues were representing a woman who had been gravely injured on the job and deemed totally unable to work. The opposing attorney hired a pie to investigate this woman. Let's call her Jane. They get to court and present the video footage as their platinum evidence proving that this woman was totally able to work. Here Jane is mowing her lawn. Here she is unloading her groceries from her car. Here she is walking the dog. Here she is going for a run, etc, etc. Jane's attorneys sat there totally quiet. When it was their turn to cross-examine the pie, they declined any questions. Their turn was up next. Who is the first witness for the opposing side? We would like to call Jane's identical twin sister to the stand. Jane's identical twin had moved in with her bedridden sister after the work accident. Full benefits awarded to Jane. Apparently the look on the faces of the opposing attorneys was the stuff lawyers' dreams are made of. Slow clap. My grandfather once hired a pie. See, he has a large vineyard, as well as he has a few engineering projects he's working on. Well, two guys pressed charges on him because they claimed they had hurt their backs working for him, and he needed to pay for the medical bills. Disability Act. He thought it was a little fishy, and he hired a pie. The pie uncovered that they had not actually been hurt, and documented the two people working at a lumber yard, which is a lot more physical labor than a vineyard. It cost my grandfather a bit to hire him, but way less than what he would have had to pay those two scammers. I think this is the most common thing a pie does. My wife hired one. She found that she was wasting money, and that I'm a very boring person. If a pie followed me around, goes to work 5 minutes late every day, comes home from work at the same time every day, stays at home until work the next day, stays at home all day on weekends, I just hope he doesn't reveal what kind of pie I watch. I worked as a pie one summer for a friend of my dad's. Busted 3 people faking disability claims. Oh man, that was some boring ass work. But sweet justice was yours thrice. I found out pie are pretty dang expensive. My dad's friend is a pie. He charges $45.65 an hour, and also charges for whatever gas transportation fees he incurs while working. He's pretty well off too. Apparently a lot of people need the service, which surprises me. My mother hired one to follow my father, who is a 6th grade teacher, so he was cheating on my mom with a former student of his who was a 14-year-old girl, and my father was 36 at the time. I'm loving this thread. I have wanted to be a pie since I was 7. Even played pie with my friends a few times, until I found out that my neighbor was killing the neighborhood cats. Not where I thought that was going. My uncle hired one to follow his wife after she gave some signs of an affair. She was the principal of a school, and claimed she had to work long hours or would attend every single school event and function, and would be gone long hours or go on business trips, among other things. It turns out she was totally having relations with the vice principal. He got camera footage of them going to her house during lunch breaks for a quickie on my uncle's bed. He got other footage as well of them meeting up numerous times. It was never confirmed, but some kids at the school later claimed she and the VP had done it in their office. After it all came to light, it dawned on all the other aunts uncles the many times my aunt would drop off her daughter at random times and random nights at our houses because she had a spontaneous school function and she needed a babysitter. It was also mysterious when she surprised my uncle with breast augmentation surgery, which turns out was for the other guy. In 2005, my mother had suspicions that my father was cheating on her whenever he would go to the Dominican Republic. So she hired an investigator and doctor who began to watch my father. The Pie Express mailed her some pictures of my father and some young woman kissing, dancing, going into hotel rooms. The works. She later found out that that woman was the mother of my father's illegitimate daughter, my half-sister. I was trying to locate a former business account who had failed to return some of my property. Pi quickly determined she used several different names, several different birth dates, sometimes claiming to be a senior citizen, and had used about 20 different addresses in the previous few years, all over the country. Pi was as baffled as I was. He said she was either a con artist or mentally ill, or both. Anyways, too bad for her. Her new employer had issued a press release about her hiring. Rather than contacting her, I had already tried that. I had exchanged some emails with her without results. I contacted her new boss. UPS man delivered my property to my door 2 days later. I have not hired one, but my now father-in-law hired one when I first started dating his daughter. Funny part is I working in the port, with ships, and when I stopped at the guard shack told them that I was being followed by some strange person. The Pi pulled up next and had 3 port police officers pull guns on him and tell him to get out of the car. I think he ended up going to jail. Laughed my ass off, but I did sort of feel bad. I would have called the dad up and offered him anything he wanted to know, at only half the cost. My mom is a divorce attorney and has one she recommends to her clients when necessary. It's all about hiding money. I have talked to the guy and basically he does a lot of online research and looking at money statements and stuff. Sounds actually really boring. He does a lot of online research and looking at money statements and stuff. Till I am a Pi. My uncle was a Pi for a while. He mostly worked for insurance groups and lawyers to make sure the correct person was being served or prosecuted. He would have to figure out stuff like who burned the farm down, John Smith Jr. or John Smith Sr. It was Jan Doe the divorcee or the third wife. One time this kid wrecked his Ferrari. Kid ended up posting his version of the wreck on MySpace. He told how he intentionally wrecked it because his parents didn't get him the Ferrari he wanted. It was very Tom Haverford from Parks and Rec. My mom called a Pi to follow my dad when she suspected that he was cheating on her. My mom took the whole Pi into her own hands. Caught my dad cheating multiple times. One time caught him at home with his pants down ready to receive a BJ from some chick. My mom is a Pi. She has asked me to go into bars and strip clubs with her on multiple occasions to observe individuals. Both made sense to remain inconspicuous as well as her own safety. Let me just say, you've never really been to a strip club until you go with your mom. She was trashing girls left and right out of earshot. About 10 years ago my cousin was deployed in Afghanistan on his second tour. During phone calls back home his daughter made mention of an uncle he knew didn't exist. My aunt decided to hire a Pi for him and found out his wife was cheating with a doctor. Of course, he was heartbroken. The divorce that followed was quick. However, there is a bright side to this. After switching to a reserve unit he was able to finish college and go to law school. His ex-wife, she was dumped by the doctor not long after the divorce. She attempted to reconcile but my cousin refused. He's remarried. She lives with a group of friends in some rundown house. I finally had to make a throwaway for this one. When I was 10 my parents separated and went through a nasty divorce. Sometime during all of that he hired a Pi to follow my mom around. The Pi concluded that my mother was a prostitute. She did escort service and hung around doctors' conventions. The Pi took photos and logged everything. My dad snuck into the house my mother and I lived in with a camcorder and recorded the discovery of a ledger documenting all of her clients in the money exchange. He leveraged it in the divorce so he didn't get bent over entirely. My dad didn't tell me any of this until I was in my 17 or so. I didn't believe it until I thought back and remembered some things. She had a pager and back in the 90s only a few types of people had pagers. Doctors and H. She would suddenly be gone late at night if I woke up. She would always say she was out grocery shopping. I also remember walking in on her wearing a revealing dress made of leather. No more revealing than what girls wear to the club but that crap is weird when it's your mom and you are 10. In a hoe. My dad still throws it at me when he wants to prove how much better of a person he is than my mother or my stepdad, who married a H. In her defense, she was paying her way to become an RN, which she is now. How does one get into the private investigation area of work? In my first year of college my friend had one follow him around for a semester. His dad wanted to see why his grades were dropping so he hired a Pi. My friend actually did really well in school. Like he went from making A's to B's and B+S. So anyways, our big group of friends would have a pie checking out most of what we were doing whenever he was around, which was a lot. We all lived in the same dorm and all our parents were friends too. Basically the guy just saw us smoking a lot of weed, drinking, and other usual college stuff. His dad was cool enough to not tell our parents what was going on though once everyone found out. Lawyer here. Malingerer plaintiff sued employer, claiming he couldn't work anymore due to on-the-job injury, crippling neck, back, etc. injuries. Wanted shitloads of $. We hired a PI to follow him and ascertain how hurt plaintiff really was. Next week, PI rolls into law office, pops in videotape. Video of plaintiff drinking some beers and climbing up a rocky river wall to dive into a river from a bridge. Swim around, make out with woman, not his wife. Repeat. Eventually swim shorts come off. Pre-trial settlement conference. Plaintiff still wants big cash. We pop in tape in a conference room. Case settles about 30 seconds into tape. LMAO. PI earned his fee fo show. If that had been me, the temptation to make it into a Rocky montage would have been too much. Nothing. My husband's ex-wife has shared custody of their 2 children. This is in the UK. He was trying for full custody because of her declining mental health and alcohol abuse. One day he went to pick them up and they were gone. Every time he found them and filed for a court order for visitation, she would move. In the past 8 years, she has had 17 addresses, including a tent in a field. A couple of the courts have informed her family they have a legal obligation to turn over her details. However, they insist they have no contact, as they live in a small village with my in-laws. I believe them, as someone would see them come and go. The last private investigator found them in a rented flat up north, a few weeks after they were evicted. I've written letters to every single school admissions department in England and Wales, and at this point I don't believe they are in school. The last school report we got showed very poor attendance, maybe attending 2 days a week. As they moved out of that county, the children missing education department they wouldn't have followed up on it, so it wasn't really worthwhile on our part, as he found nothing we didn't already know. Our intention was to get an address that was current, and instead of going to court, going through the local child contact center. They deal with reintroductions after extended separation, and would also keep the adults separate, but at this point we're just waiting for them to turn 18. I actually hired one over the summer to locate my birth mother. He uncovered a lot of things, like that she had been married 6 times and was currently engaged in the past 25 years, and she had 3 children after me. She even lived in the next county over from me, and I was born in Tennessee. Needless to say, it was a moderately scarring experience, and I will never hire a private detective again, haha. My grandmother would be what you call a crazy old bee. She's used pies on multiple occasions, including to find out that her second husband was cheating on her and all associated information about the other woman, to find background information on her third husband. Information on the first 2 husbands was acquired through a pie by her father, to find background information on her children's spouses, to find out that her youngest daughter was a lesbian, found at a gay bar buying pills, and finally, to look up background information on the SOS of all of her grandchildren. Now that I've actually typed out and looked at the list, I wonder if she's been using the same guy for 30 years. My grandma tried to use a pie to find her missing niece, stolen by her drug addict mother, unsuccessful. Decades later, grandma found her on Facebook. My aunt got a video of my ex-uncle sitting in his truck. Then he leaned his head back and gave a wistful sigh, and then his now current wife sat up next to him. My friend's mom once hired a pie to dig up stuff on her boyfriend. Turns out he was 11 years older than he said he was. It was pretty insane. What happens if a pie gets caught in the act of following someone? Are there legal repercussions? Do you have the right to use force to detain them? It's not illegal to follow someone in public. If you say I don't work here, then people should believe it. Why are people so untrusting of this phrase #feature-me? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.